and know that the right partner for you won't see that as a threat. They actually will be encouraged by it. And hopefully they even come with it on their own, so that you guys are starting with 2 and moving on up, you know, to build a bigger portfolio. So I am a single woman or a single man, and I want to buy a house, but I also want to wait for my significant other. Should I wait to buy or nah? That is a question that I get so often, specifically from my Instagram community, because I talk a lot about home ownership on there. I talk about the good and the bad, because it's not all roses around here. But I've yet to regret buying a house. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about 5 reasons why you should not wait to buy your first home. And I'm going to give you some context behind these, because I have these conversations all the time, but I never have a chance to really give the context as to why I believe that you should not. Okay, just in case you were confused. No, you should not wait, and I'm going to tell you why in 5 ways. So number 1 is that home prices will only continue to increase. If you look back to, what month are we in? July, August 2021, home prices, well, actually they were pretty high, because that was just an interesting time. But anyway, it doesn't matter, because home prices were still less. People were offering over whatever the home or the listed price was, but that doesn't mean the home was worth that. So like, home prices only, for the most part, go up. And so if you wait till 2025 to buy a home, you're going to be spending more than what you could have spent in 2023 if you just would have said yes to it. Now, granted, you need to be financially ready for home ownership, because it's not just the down payment and the closing costs you have to consider. You have to consider repairs. You have to consider turning on utilities in said home. You have to consider furnishing the home. Like, there's so many other expenses that people do not talk about. But I don't want you to use that as an excuse, because some of y'all also got close to 50K, 100K in y'all savings accounts, and it's just sitting there collecting dust. And I don't want that for y'all. I want you to put your money to use. So if you have 6 to 9 months, because some people say 3 to 6, I say 6 to 9, because anything could happen. And I know what it's like to be laid off or get fired. Well, I've never been fired, but I know what it's like to be laid off from a job, and 3 months sometimes ain't enough time. So I say, as long as you have 6 to 9 months of emergency savings in your savings account, the rest of that money needs to be invested. And home ownership, it's not for everybody. But if you know that you're sick of paying rent and you know that you want some of the advantages of home ownership, then I would not wait, because the $300,000 that you could be paying now is better than the $500,000 that you may have to pay in 2025, because homes are only going to continue to increase. Well, not always, but most times homes increase in value. For where I live in Texas, this is a highly appreciating market. Like, homes rarely decrease in value, very rarely decrease in value. So that's another advantage that you want to consider, is that you want to get your home at a decent price. And the longer you wait, the more you're going to end up paying for that home. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that, again, I've already said this, in that homes are appreciating in value. And if you aren't involved in real estate, you may not understand what appreciation means. But basically, to give you an example, I bought my home, and this is an example because these aren't real numbers, but I bought my home for, not real numbers, I bought my home for $200,000. The homes in my community now are worth they're being listed at $360,000. That's $160,000 in appreciation that I could potentially have if this was a real scenario. So that means if I were to sell my home right now, I'm pocketing some money, because I only spent $200,000 and I sold it for $360,000. That's $160,000 difference. That's the power of appreciation. Now, with appreciation often comes higher property taxes, because your home is worth more, which means the government wants more of your money, you know. But that's the beauty of, you know, escrow. You know, yes, you're gonna have to pay that, but you also can write that off. Well, depending on where you live. Where I live in the state of Texas, you can write off your property taxes whenever you file your taxes. So it kind of is an advantage, even though it's a disadvantage, but it's also an advantage. It's kind of a, you know, a little two-way situation. But you need to do the research on, like, home ownership and real estate laws in your county, in your state, because it may not be something you can write off. But I know that my home is worth more than what I bought it for. And for me, that's good news, because that means if I ever sell it, I'm gonna make some money on this darn thing. And that's the point of buying real estate, is you wanna make money when you buy, not just when you sell. So I'm gonna make some I don't plan on selling anytime soon, but if I were to sell right now, I would be walking away with this pretty solid profit based on those numbers. Even though they're made up, I've just made those up, but the homes in my area are worth almost $100,000 more than what I purchased them for. That's the power of appreciation. That's the power of being able to also take that money out potentially and use it for something else, which I also don't plan on doing anytime soon. But that basically what that is borrowing against your home. Think of that as an additional mortgage. So some ways that people are doing that is, let's say you've been, letting your money, your equity sit in your home for 18 years, and now your kid is going off to school. So instead of you taking out a student loan, you may borrow against your home and take out that equity and pay for their schooling. So now you have potentially a second mortgage that you're paying. But if the rates are good from an interest rate perspective at that time, that may not necessarily be a bad thing, because usually with private student loans, and I know this, the interest rates are often a lot higher. So if you are able to lock in a lower rate on that HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit, or if you are able to, what's the other option? It's not a HELOC, it's a, not refinance. I can't think of the other option. I'll put it on the screen somewhere, but the one that I was considering was a HELOC, which is why that's on the top of my brain. If that line of credit has a lower interest rate, then ultimately you're saving money over time. At 2%, for example, versus a student loan, a private student loan with the interest rate of 6.5. That's a huge difference. So that's one way that you can use the equity in your home. You can also take equity out and make some home improvements. Let's say you bought a home that, is move-in ready, but also needs some upgrades. You can take money maybe later, because you can't do it immediately, but you can borrow against your home. You can also take that money out and purchase maybe a second property, for example. Like, the equity in your home is for you to utilize. Now, my personal recommendation, and I'm no expert, but it's to let the money sit and actually grow over time. Like, I recommend usually at least a year of not touching that equity, especially if it's a small amount. Like, I feel like until you have at least $50,000, that's how my advisor explained it to me. It's like, unless you have at least $50,000, like, don't touch it. And I do, but I'm still not touching it because I don't need it right now, So that's the power of equity and homes appreciating. Like, you can use that money to do other things. If it's something you want to do. Like I said, I'm not touching mine anytime soon. Number 3 is that you may not get married. And that sounds very harsh, but like, I feel like, especially for me, like, I'm not married and I do desire to be married one day. But I'm not gonna wait for this man. And I don't want him to be waiting for me. I want you to have your own place, boo-boo. I got my own place. We got 2 rental properties. We walking in with assets, and they're our assets. Like, I don't want your place. You shouldn't want my place. We'll likely buy a new place together. But the beauty of this is that we're able to, point 4, turn these homes into rental properties. So usually when it comes to buying a rental property, an investment property full out, it requires a minimum of 15% down. And that's a lot of money. Imagine 15% on a $300,000 home. Heck, imagine 15% on a $100,000 home. That's still a lot of money. Versus this first home that you bought, and you put down maybe 3%, maybe 3.5, maybe even 5%, You can put down less, So that's keeping more money in your pocket. And now, again, now that me and Boo Boo done met, and Boo Boo got a house, I got a house, we about to get another house because we want to start fresh, we can turn our places into rental properties, or we can sell them because they're worth $100,000, $200,000 more, and we could use that money to buy the next place. I would never ask my man to sell his place, though. That's gonna be his own decision because he bought that house without me. And just like this place is gonna be my decision, what I decide to do with it, rent, I'm not selling it, is at my discretion, So that's the beauty of home ownership as well, is that your first home is often your rental property, which is why you want to buy smart and buy strategically. and buy what you need right now based on your scenario. If you don't have kids, don't buy a house based on a good school district unless you know you're planning to have them immediately, like immediately meaning a year or two. Like, do not buy a house as a childless woman or man in a good school district and ain't even no kids in the future right now. Like, that's what I mean by buying strategically. Like, buy strategically. So yeah, that's point 4, which is turning your first home into a rental. You will be able to do that at the lowest cost possible, you know, and usually your rent will cover your mortgage and then some, because you bought in, I don't know, 2020, and you're now about to get married in 2023. I'm sure your house is worth more, which means that you can charge more. Like, rents are only going up, so you can take that advantage. That could be your mortgage being $1,500, but rent's going in the area for $21. Guess what? That's $600. Well, obviously you want to account for expenses and stuff like that, but you'll be able to collect some cash on it, is what I'm trying to say, without having to do any major work, because you'll make sure that it's move-in ready. Point 5 is that, what was that? Okay, point 1 was home prices are increasing. Point 2 is that homes are only appreciating in the area, meaning that the value of the home is increasing. Point 3 is that you may or may not get married. You may or may not have kids. So don't create, you know, don't wait for something that may or may not happen. Now, I want it for you because I believe in speaking life and manifesting and all of that, you know. But we also need to be realistic and know that we can move out of the home, or your significant other can move into the home with you. That's not my story. I'm gonna be moving with my man. But if that's what you want and you want your man to move in, you want your girl to move in, that's beautiful for you. Cute for you is what I like to say. If you like it, I love it. Point 4 is that you can turn your first home into a rental, which is what I'm planning to do. And then point 5, and I think I told y'all I had 6. I don't know where I went wrong for that. Point 5 is that you could be potentially, or you are missing out on tax benefits. I want to be clear that the tax benefits of owning a rental property are much better than owning your primary residence, which is the home that you're living in. But just to give you some context, and also I've linked a video in the description about the tax benefits of home ownership. But just to give you a few things that I'm able to deduct from my taxes are, number 1, my property taxes are deductible, which means that I can write those off. Number 2, the mortgage interest that I pay is deductible, which means that I can write that off. We all have mortgage interest. If you have mortgage, you have interest. That's the money that you're paying the bank to loan you money. So you can write that off. And I think that's across the nation. Property taxes are unique to each state. You have to, and each county. Like, I know in Maryland, when I lived up there, they had state, county, state, and federal taxes. So you gotta read into wherever you live, read into those for you in particular. And then the third thing, which for me, if you don't have a business, that it might not be applicable to you, but I have a home office deduction because I run a business in my office, and so I'm able to deduct that as well. So those are just some things that, you know, you don't even consider when you're, and I'm sorry, I have another one, and this is if you have recently bought. If you happen to purchase discount points, then you can also write those off. And discount points basically kind of lowers the, am I thinking about discount points? Yes, it lowers the amount, it lowers the interest rate that you pay. So you're paying to lower the amount that you're paying from a overall, you're paying, no, I'm thinking about something. I'm thinking about the buy down. I forgot what discount points are. I'm gonna put the thing on the screen. I ain't bought a house in a long time, child, and I don't want to tell y'all the wrong thing. But if you happen to buy discount points, then you can also write those off depending on where you live. So that's just another example of, you know, tax benefits of home ownerships. You can't write off anything with your apartment. And I'm not judging folks in apartments because I've lived in apartments for most of my adult life, but I couldn't do anything. The tax advantages weren't there. I was making somebody else rich. I was allowing them to write off all this stuff that I should be freaking writing off. Why am I hustling backwards? That's how I felt, and that's why I was so adamant about paying off my debt so I could hurry up and buy a freaking house. And I love it here. I wish I would have done it sooner, but I believe and trust God's timing. So I don't feel like I needed it sooner, but I'm just so thankful that I bought when I did, because it's a struggle. It's a struggle out here. But one thing I want to leave you with is that, well, two things I want to leave you with. Number one, I have a whole book ready to own. If you are a first-time home buyer and you just don't know where to start, I dive into the different cost of home ownership. I dive into how to find the right home for you and buy strategically. I dive into what the process of is like of submitting an offer, closing on your home, moving in. Like, this is very thorough. This is linked in the description. Ready to Own is a game changer, and I don't think I promote this enough. My friends remind me that I need to promote it. So get the book, take it with you as you look at homes, talk to realtors. You know, there's a home tour checklist in here. There's just so much. But then also number two, I want to reiterate the fact that, I'm sorry, I have one more point after this. I want to reiterate the fact that when interest rates rise, usually that's scary for sellers, and they'll offer a lot more concessions. Those concessions could be, maybe they're covering your closing costs, so all you have to worry about is the down payment, you know, and maybe some of the closing costs. Maybe you pay for your own inspection, for example. Another concession could be them actually giving you a credit towards your closing. Maybe they'll offer $5,000, which means that they're pocketing less in their overall, you know, sale, but at least they don't have to worry about the home anymore. You know, maybe they'll offer you some money to buy down your interest rate. Like, those are different things that they'll consider. They'll even maybe accept lower than what the home is listed for if nobody's buying. You know, they may be eager to sell. So I want you to think about those kind of things and not just the interest rate, because people are like, oh, it's 7%, I can afford that. You have to find a deal that works for you. So if you see a home and it's, I don't know, $250,000, but we know the interest rate is 7%, maybe you can offer less and ask for closing costs, as long as it fits your budget, as long as you can afford the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Like, focus on what that number is and work with a good agent who's willing to advocate for you to get some of those concessions so that the interest rate doesn't even matter. Because I bought this home for $225 and my interest rate is 7%, but I didn't have to bring in anything in the closing, and the payment is still something that I can afford. I still wanted to stay below $2,000, and I'm still below $2,000 because I got the home for less, for example. So that's just something that I always encourage my friends and some of the women that I've worked with, is to think beyond what the interest rate is and find an agent that's willing to advocate for you and ask for everything. Because if a seller is eager to sell, they're gonna do something to help you make this happen if you really want it. So last point is, if you do need help with creating a strategy for your first home and you don't know where to start, in addition to Ready to Own, I do offer one-on-one personal finance sessions so we can create a strategy together. I can give you some insight to my experience. I can tell you more about the different home loans that are out there and just give you something to get started with the process, so that you're not sitting here again this time next year watching this video. No, I want you to come back and say, I took your advice and I made it happen. I bought a home. Like, I want action. I'm an action-oriented woman, and I want you to take action too, and not wait for your man, your woman. You know, they ought to be impressed and be like, okay, well, she got a house, let me get me a house. Or he got a house, let me get me a house, so that we equally owe. You feel me? So that is what I want to leave you with, and know that the right partner for you won't see that as a threat. They actually will be encouraged by it, and hopefully they even come with it on their own, so that you guys are starting with 2 and moving on up, you know, to build a bigger portfolio. So that's all. Thank you for watching. The links to Ready to Own, my one-on-one personal finance session, and my tax benefits for homeowners is all linked in the description. Leave your comments, questions below. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.